Hey, David Brister here with another 3 for All, and this is 3 John 5 licks from 2017. And definitely John 5 is a very unusual and interesting, guitarist. And a lot of the guitarists I've selected, for this are, labeled interesting or unusual. But I do like these roads less traveled and these, different ideas and kind of out of the box, approaches, to music. And that's a big reason why I've kind of targeted some of these live solos, just to find, unusual licks and phrases and, interesting ideas, kind of hiding in all these different guitarists, styles and bag of tricks. And this lesson's definitely no exception. So John Five's, really well known for his own, solo material, his kind of psychobilly, rock shred hybrid, where it's typical you'll hear, Arpeggios and shred guitar techniques and Van Halenisms and tapping, but then you'll also hear like, bluegrass, banjo, and fiddle licks too. So he kind of combines all these different worlds, and it creates, a really interesting and unique sound too. Most people watching this probably know John Five from either working with Rob Zombie or with Marilyn Manson. But he has a long career and a very impressive, resume of working with all these different musicians. He was a ghostwriter out in LA for a long time. And if you don't really know what a ghostwriter is, people don't really talk about it that much, but there are musicians, behind the scenes that help artists write songs. And there's a lot of them kind of sprinkled through, the decades and decades of music. I mean, you have kind of the esteemed, kind of singer-songwriter type like Desmond Child, who wrote a whole bunch of songs for Bon Jovi and a bunch of other people. And John Five's not really like Desmond Child, but he is kind of this secret weapon behind the scenes. So here's an image I made kind of showing a little bit of his background and some of the people he's worked with. Now, I know a lot of you out there might be thinking, who's this freak show, guitar player? But trust me, John Five is one of the most normal, average, regular. Okay, that last one was a puppet, I'm pretty sure. That wasn't even John Five. Okay, so he is a little bit, strange or different than most. But I'm a big horror movie fan. I love horror movies and Stephen King and things like that. So as soon as I noticed him, I was like, okay, this is like Scooby-Doo shred. I like this, May not be for everybody, but he is like a normal person underneath the makeup and the weird hair and the crazy clothes and whatever. It's just a normal guy. And his name actually is John. The licks from this lesson actually come from a video bootleg that I found on YouTube, and this was from the 2017 Hellfest, which Hellfest is this huge metal concert in France, and it's enormous. I think they said they average like 50,000 people every day. I think it's like a 2 or 3 day event. I've never gone to Hellfest, but just by judging, from the video and the footage I saw, it was like, oh my gosh, it looks like it's like Disney World, only it's in hell, which is pretty cool, as long as you're not offended by stuff like that. The whole solo, like the 3 licks that we're going to look at, all come from that lead that he was playing in double drop D. So to get there, just tune your low E down to D, and then also tune your high E down to D. And we're going to play around, well, at least the first lick and the last lick, play around with those 3 Ds, the low D, the middle D, I guess, the D string, and then the high D way up on the high E string. But keep in mind, those are all 3 tuned to D. The first lick, the Waves of Arpeggios, this follows a really interesting kind of classically influenced progression. It moves from D major to G major and then G minor. And so here's the clip of him playing this lick, which is terrifying, but we're going to break it down and you'll see that it's not really as hard as it sounds. It sounds amazing, like impressive. But then once you see what he's doing and you start playing, it's like, oh, okay, that's not as hard as, I thought it was. So this approach really, it is unusual, but there are some other examples of this type of thing. Paul Gilbert actually has a song called 3 E's for Edward, which is on his Get Out of My Yard album. And that's where he actually had three guitars. He had three strings on his guitar, all tuned to E. And then he was doing this crazy open string skipping tapping thing with three E strings, basically. Well, John Five's doing a similar type of thing, but three of his strings are tuned to D, and he created that really wicked lick. So it sounds impressive fast, but the first thing I want to do, let's just slow it down. Let's just slow it down to a crawl, so you can really see what's going on here. So it's all hammer-ons, and I noticed on the video that John was using his third finger. I'm opting to use my pinky, mainly just to make it easier. And I'm not afraid to use my pinky. I know a lot of guitarists out there are like, oh my gosh, my pinky, it's so weak and underdeveloped. Well, the only way you're going to get it stronger and develop that pinky is by using it. So if you're still, avoiding the use of your pinky, try it with this. Just practice it. It's something simple that you can kind of incorporate or, use to help strengthen that pinky finger. So slowly it sounds like this. And that's one pass or one cycle. I think the trickiest thing is just getting your fingers up, because the start of every string is an open string, so you have to really watch out as you move from string to string. And muting is very important. You can see on the video that John's hand is basically just positioned right there and muting. Then he moves up to G major, which is going to be played like this. So that's, open 5 to 9. And then it goes to G minor. And then back to D major. Really cool lick. Alright, the next lick, return of the waves of arpeggios. After that initial phrase, he starts doing a kill switch thing, almost like Buckethead, and then he moves his way into the string skipping arpeggio idea. So now he's doing a D major arpeggio, way up here in the 17th position, and he's doing this, and that's the shape. It's the shape in the sequence, rather. So that moves from D down to C, and then down to B flat, and then he starts doing this little tremolo picking. So here's the lick. Pretty cool, sequence of arpeggios that he slipped into, kind of expertly, navigating around this alter tuning that he's in. Because he starts the solo with this crazy noise, and then he starts doing, the first wave of arpeggios idea. Starts doing the kill switch thing, and then starts doing this. And, you're back in kind of a normal, tuning again right there. Kind of a familiar, pattern, or playing area, because, we're technically using those arpeggios on strings that we didn't, alter or tune differently. Okay, the last idea here I call the son of waves of arpeggios, mainly because it's kind of borrowing, what he started with. And after he's cruised through the solo, he kind of goes back to the original idea, waves of arpeggios. Um, and then it just turns into this hypnotic, just repetitive drone of notes. And it sounds like this. So right there, he's really just playing the bottom two, Ds. The low D, which is technically your low E tuned to D, and then also, the D string. But he's playing it, with palm muting, and he's playing it blindingly fast. So it's just creating, this 6-note swirl that you hear over and over and over. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Slowly it doesn't really sound that impressive. But you start looping that sucker and it really has this hypnotic kind of effect, which sounds really cool. Pretty cool. Now you can take that idea and you can move it around, and that's something I'd highly recommend. Once you've tuned your guitar to this tuning and you kind of played around with some of these ideas that he played and had, in his guitar solo, play around, maybe change those major arpeggios to minor and see what that sounds like. Maybe change the progression of what we looked at, with the first lick. Then just to kind of expand, these ideas into something else, take that D major idea that he was playing with there in the last lick. Let's flip that to D minor. So now we're going to need to stretch an extra fret down to the 3rd fret. We can kind of create like our own little exercise using that shape. And there I just basically moved from D minor to D major, and then E minor to E major, and then just kind of ended on A. So kind of a 4-1 or a 4-5-1 progression. But you could do anything with that. You could manipulate, you could shift, larger distances between, phrases or whatever your imagination, kind of comes up with. All right, that's going to wrap up this look at 3 licks from John 5 from 2017. And please leave some feedback and comments and subscribe to Late Night Lessons. And I'll be back with some more material and chord play and 3 for all and scales and tails before you know it. Thank you.